The late morning sun slanted through the wide glass windows of Isabella Hart's bedroom, spilling golden light across the cream walls and polished oak floor. The faint hum of the city below carried upward, softened by the tall curtains that swayed gently in the breeze. Isabella stood before the mirror, her figure framed in silk and sunlight. The robe she wore, a delicate ivory trimmed with embroidered roses, skimmed her ankles as she leaned closer to fasten her earrings. She studied her reflection, the faint flush on her cheeks, the glow that seemed to rise from somewhere deeper than skin. It was the glow of a woman in love, a woman whose future felt certain and safe. At 26, Isabella had carved out a life many could only dream of. She was the proud owner of Hart Designs, a boutique that had blossomed from a cramped stall in the market into a thriving store in the heart of the city. The women who walked through her doors were the wives of ministers, the daughters of governors, and the socialites who never repeated an outfit. Isabella had stitched her ambition into fabric, and now it draped across the shoulders of the wealthy. And in 2 months, she would marry Michael. She thought of him and a soft smile spread across her lips. Michael was everything she had prayed for in her loneliest years. Tall, with eyes that held both warmth and mystery, and a smile that could disarm her even on her most difficult days. For 2 years he had walked by her side, steady and certain, supporting her dreams without fear of her success. He was a man who remembered the little things, who would call her in the morning just to ask if she had eaten breakfast, who knew the sound of her laughter as if it were music. Her heart fluttered as she adjusted the thin chain around her neck. Soon, she would walk down the aisle to him. Soon, her golden dream would be complete. "Bella." The sound of her sister's voice drew her from her reverie. Isabella turned from the mirror to see Clara reclining on the velvet chaise by the window. Clara had always known how to appear graceful even in idleness. At 22, she possessed the kind of beauty that unsettled people. Almond-shaped eyes framed by long lashes, a jawline sharper than Isabella's softer features, lips that curved into a smile too easily. She was draped in one of Isabella's old summer dresses, though on her it looked as though it had stepped straight from the runway. "You look dreamy," Clara teased, twirling a strand of her dark hair around her finger. "Thinking of your prince again?" Isabella laughed, her voice warm. "I suppose I am. He called this morning just to check if I slept well. Who does that? Who worries about such little things?" "Someone who knows how to charm," Clara replied, though her grin didn't quite touch her eyes. Isabella crossed the room and sat beside her, reaching for her hand. She had always adored Clara, always felt protective of her since their parents' divorce left Clara clinging to her older sister. "One day, you'll find someone like that, someone who sees you for who you are and chooses you above everyone else." Clara tilted her head, her eyes lingering on Isabella's glowing face. For a fleeting moment, envy pulsed sharp in her chest. Isabella had it all: success, admiration, love. Even in her generosity, she cast a shadow too wide for Clara to escape. "Maybe sooner than you think," Clara said softly, her smile curling at the edges. Isabella squeezed her hand, oblivious to the undercurrent in her sister's words. "You'll be my maid of honor, of course. I can't walk that aisle without you beside me." Clara's fingers tightened slightly. "Of course, Bella, I'll always be right beside you." The words hung in the air, layered with meanings Isabella could not yet decipher. Outside, a car horn blared faintly on the street below, and the city moved on, unaware of the storm that had begun to stir quietly in one young woman's heart. For Isabella, the dream was still golden. She did not know it was already tainted at the edges, already slipping from her grasp. Evening settled over the Hart household like a gentle shawl, warm with laughter and humming voices. Rolls of fabric spilled across the couch in the sitting room, lace veils lay folded neatly on the armchairs, and pages of wedding magazines rustled beneath the ceiling fan's soft churn. Isabella sat on the rug with their mother, holding up swatches of satin against her skin, while they both broke into smiles of delight. "This one, Mama," Isabella said, lifting a pale rose fabric into the light. "Michael says he loves me best in soft colors, something gentle, something that doesn't steal attention but whispers elegance." Her mother clapped her hands softly. "Ah, you have always known what suits you. Your eye for detail, Isabella, is what brought your shop to life. You will glow like a queen." Laughter bubbled from Isabella, the kind of laughter that rose from contentment. She was radiant, at ease, loved, chosen. And Clara sat on the far edge of the sofa, half listening, half forgotten. She twisted the corner of a lace sample between her fingers. Their mother hardly glanced her way. Whenever she did, it was with soft dismissals. "Clara, fetch me the scissors, dear," or "Clara, keep those ribbons untangled." It was always Isabella's face they turned toward, Isabella's voice they leaned in to hear. The air smelled of new fabric and warm stew from the kitchen, yet to Clara it carried a faint bitterness. She had lived 22 years in her sister's shadow, her beauty noted but never celebrated, her opinions quickly brushed aside. Isabella was the golden child, brilliant, ambitious, adored. Clara was the younger one. Later that night, when the house had gone still, Clara slipped out onto the balcony. The moonlight cut across her face, cold and silver, as she hugged her knees to her chest. The quiet of the night wrapped around her, pressing against the thoughts she had bottled too long. "Everything she touches turns to gold," she murmured to herself. "And what about me? What do I have? Her cast-off dresses, her charity, always Bella's little sister." Her voice broke into the night like a confession. She wanted something. No, she wanted everything Isabella had. The success, the admiration, the man who called every morning just to say he loved her. Her phone buzzed on the iron railing beside her. Clara frowned and picked it up. The name on the screen froze her in place. "Michael." She hesitated, thumb hovering. 1,000 warnings screamed inside her, but another voice, softer, coaxing, desperate, whispered, "What if?" She pressed accept. "Clara," his voice rolled through the speaker, low and smooth. "I didn't mean to call this late. I was leaving Bella a message and your number came up. I thought of you." Her breath caught. She gripped the railing tighter. "Thought of me?" "Yes," he said, his tone carrying warmth that pressed too close. "You've been helping with the wedding, haven't you? I should thank you. You've been such a comfort to Isabella." Clara's pulse quickened. The words lingered, wrapping around her like silk. He wasn't supposed to sound like that, not grateful, not formal, but tender. I'm just doing what any sister would," she whispered. Michael chuckled softly. "Not every sister would. You've been remarkable, Clara." Her throat tightened. This was wrong. She knew it was wrong. But wrongness had a taste sweeter than she expected, sweeter than the endless bitterness of being unseen. "Michael," she said, her voice trembling between guilt and longing. "You should." "Shouldn't what?" he asked gently. The silence stretched between them. Neither spoke, but the quiet itself throbbed with an unspoken question. Clara's lips parted, then closed. She wanted to hang up, to sever the dangerous line tethering her to him, but she couldn't. When she finally whispered goodnight and ended the call, she remained on the balcony for a long while, the phone warm in her hand. She stared at the moon, her chest rising and falling with quick breaths. Something had shifted. A line had been crossed, even if only with words. And deep inside her, beneath the guilt and confusion, a seed took root. A seed of desire, a seed of betrayal. Perfect. I'll continue with chapters 3 to 5 in the same expanded, novel-like style, about 2 pages per chapter. Each one will be rich in description, dialogue, and suspense to deepen the betrayal. It happened on a rain-soaked night, the kind of night when the city streets gleamed with reflections of headlights and puddles rippled beneath hurried feet. Isabella had asked Michael and Clara to collect a batch of imported wedding favors that had arrived at the port earlier than expected. Clara had hesitated when Michael offered her a ride, but Isabella insisted it would be easier if they went together. The ride back was quiet. Raindrops drummed on the roof of the car, a steady rhythm that filled the silences between them. Clara sat stiffly in the passenger seat, her gaze fixed on the blurred city lights through the window. When Michael pulled over outside Clara's street, she reached for the door handle quickly, eager to escape the tight air pressing down on them. But he caught her wrist, gentle yet firm. She froze, her breath shallow. "Clara," he said, his voice low, the kind of voice that brushed too close to her skin. "Wait." She turned, her eyes wide. The street lamp outside painted shadows across his face, deepening the lines around his mouth, softening the darkness in his eyes. You're hurting Bella," she whispered, the words tumbling out though she had not meant to say them. Whatever this is, it's wrong." He leaned closer, his hand still holding her wrist. "Then tell me to stop, tell me to let go." Her lips parted, but the words never came. Instead, in that fragile second, something stronger than reason tipped the balance. Their lips met, the kiss quick and desperate, a spark flaring in the suffocating dark. When they pulled apart, Clara's pulse thundered in her ears. "We can't." "We already did," Michael interrupted, his eyes burning. "And you don't want to stop any more than I do." Clara pressed her forehead to the cool window glass, guilt and hunger warring inside her. She had crossed a line. Yet, instead of recoiling, she found herself stepping deeper. The weeks that followed blurred with secrecy. Stolen kisses in shadowed corners, text messages hidden under false names, hurried meetings where glances lingered too long. Clara felt alive in ways she had never known, alive and powerful. For once, she was not the forgotten sister. One evening, they sat in a quiet cafe at the edge of town. The rain had begun again, tapping gently against the glass. Michael leaned across the table, his hand covering hers. "Listen, Clara," he murmured. "I can't leave Isabella, not yet. She trusts me and she has everything, her business, her money. If I marry her, I secure a future no man in his right mind would throw away." Her chest tightened, her pride stung. "And what about me? Am I just your secret?" Michael's thumb brushed her knuckles. "You're not my secret, you're my choice, but we need to be clever. I'll marry her, secure what I need, and when the time is right, I'll walk away. Then it'll be us, Clara, with everything she owns in our hands." Clara's heart pounded. The words tasted bitter, yet they thrilled her. She should have run. Instead, she nodded slowly, her lips curving in a faint smile. "Then let's play the game," she whispered. And with that, the pact was sealed. The Hart house grew colder, though the evenings were still warm with summer. Isabella noticed it first in small ways. The half-distracted answers Michael gave when she spoke of flowers and venues, the quickness with which Clara retreated to her room when she entered. She tried to ignore it, telling herself it was only wedding stress. But unease lingered, clinging like a damp mist she could not shake. One night, Isabella stirred awake to find Michael's side of the bed empty. The clock glowed too. 17 a.m. She slipped into her robe, her bare feet whispering against the floorboards as she crept downstairs. A faint murmur reached her ears near the kitchen. She froze, her heart hammering. "Not now," Michael's voice hissed. "She's upstairs." "She suspects something," Clara's voice answered, sharp and urgent. Isabella's breath caught. The sound of her own pulse thundered in her head. She pressed against the wall, straining to hear. You're imagining things, Michael muttered. She trusts me completely. Trust doesn't last forever, Clara whispered. She's clever, Michael, she'll find out. There was silence, then the scrape of a chair. Isabella panicked, stepping back too quickly. Her shoulder brushed against a side table, sending a framed photograph clattering to the floor. The whispers cut off. Seconds later, Michael appeared in the hall, his silhouette tall and calm in the dim light. He smiled faintly, though his eyes seemed sharper than usual. Bella couldn't sleep. Her throat tightened. I thought I heard something. Just me, love. His smile softened. Went down for some water. Come on, let's go back to bed. His hand brushed her arm, steady and warm. Yet Isabella felt only a chill creeping through her veins. She let him guide her upstairs, but her thoughts spun restlessly. Something was wrong. That night, as Michael's breathing steadied beside her, Isabella lay awake staring at the ceiling. Doubt whispered in her ear, growing louder with each passing hour. The following week, Isabella met Lydia at their favorite tea room. Lydia had been her closest friend since university, outspoken and fiercely loyal. She leaned across the table that afternoon, her eyes serious. Bella, she began, her voice low, I don't know how to tell you this, but I saw Michael 2 nights ago. He wasn't alone. Isabella's stomach sank. Not alone. Lydia nodded. He was at La Maison with Clara. Isabella's teacup clattered onto its saucer. Clara, no, you must have been mistaken. I know what I saw, Lydia said firmly. They weren't just sitting, they were holding hands. The words pierced like glass shards. Isabella shook her head, trying to steady her breath. You're wrong, Lydia. Michael loves me, and Clara would never do that to me. That night, she confronted Michael. Tell me the truth, Isabella demanded, her voice trembling. Were you with Clara at La Maison? Michael blinked, his expression shifting from surprise to hurt. He stepped closer, cupping her face with practiced tenderness. Bella, no, I went to meet a client. Clara only stopped by because she knew I was there. You think I'd betray you with your own sister? That hurts. Her resolve faltered. Doubt and guilt tangled inside her. I didn't mean to accuse you. Lydia must have misunderstood. At that moment, Clara appeared at the doorway. Accuse him of what? Isabella stammered, shame flooding her face. Clara's eyes filled with tears instantly. Bella, how could you even think that? I'd never do something like that to you. Her tears fell, fast and convincing. Isabella pulled her into a hug, whispering apologies, her own eyes wet. Clara buried her face in Isabella's shoulder, hiding the smirk that tugged at her lips. The glass of Isabella's world had cracked. She just didn't know it was already splintering beyond repair. The morning dawned with a brilliance that seemed to mock Isabella's nerves. Golden sunlight spilled through the tall windows of her chamber, glinting off the white satin gown that hung like a promise upon the carved wooden frame. She stood before the mirror, hands trembling slightly as Clara adjusted the veil over her hair. The veil was delicate, edged with pearls, a family heirloom their mother once wore. You look breathtaking, Clara said softly, her voice catching. She smoothed the gown with careful hands, her eyes hidden behind lowered lashes. Isabella turned, smiling brightly, her own eyes shining with unshed tears. Thank you, Clara. I don't know how I'd be standing here without you. You've been my anchor through everything. Clara forced a laugh, tucking a stray curl behind her sister's ear. Don't get sentimental yet. You'll ruin your mascara. Save the tears for when Michael sees you at the altar. Michael, Isabella's heart fluttered at the thought. The man she had dreamt of since their first meeting, the man she believed to be her forever. Today, she would become his wife. The church bells rang out, their solemn tones calling the city to witness. Guests filled the cathedral, their fine clothes rustling as they settled into pews adorned with roses and lilies. The aisle stretched long and gleaming, the polished marble floor reflecting the colors of the stained glass. At the altar, Michael stood in his tailored suit, dark hair gleaming under the soft light, his smile practiced and steady. To the world, he looked the perfect groom. Behind the heavy doors, Isabella's father linked his arm with hers. "Are you ready, my daughter?" he asked, his voice thick with pride. She nodded, squeezing his hand. "I've never been more ready." The doors opened. Gasps filled the church as Isabella stepped forward, her gown flowing like liquid light. Each step carried her closer to the man she loved, her heart thundering in her chest. She caught Michael's eye, and for a moment she believed she saw devotion there. The music swelled. Clara trailed behind with the bridesmaids, her smile fixed though her eyes flickered with something unreadable. At the altar, Michael took Isabella's hand. His grip was warm, confident, his eyes locked on hers. To everyone watching, it was love incarnate. To Isabella, it was heaven itself. The priest's voice rose, solemn and steady. "Do you, Isabella Marlowe, take Michael O'Connor to be your lawfully wedded husband?" "I do," she whispered, tears shining. "And do you, Michael O'Connor, take Isabella Marlowe?" "I do," Michael replied, his voice firm, smooth as silk. Only Clara, standing nearby, saw the gleam in his eyes, the satisfaction of a man securing not love, but victory. When the priest declared them husband and wife, the cathedral erupted with applause. Michael drew Isabella close and kissed her, the crowd rising to their feet. Isabella melted into him, believing her dreams had finally taken root. As they turned to face their guests, Isabella's heart soared. She saw her father's beaming face, the joyful tears of her aunts, the proud smiles of friends. Everything was perfect. Everything was as it should be. But as she looked briefly toward Clara, she caught something, a flicker in her sister's gaze. Not joy, not even envy, but something darker, something like hunger. It vanished as quickly as it came, replaced by a bright smile. Isabella dismissed it, convinced it was her imagination. That night, the reception sparkled with laughter and champagne. Michael charmed the crowd, his arm never leaving Isabella's waist. He whispered promises into her ear, promises of forever, of building a life together, of children and travels and sunsets shared. Isabella drank every word, her heart full. She did not see how his eyes occasionally drifted across the room to Clara, how Clara avoided them yet lingered nearby as if bound by an invisible thread. The night ended with the couple leaving under a rain of petals, the crowd cheering. Isabella clutched Michael's hand, her soul alight with happiness. To her, the day marked the beginning of a lifetime of love. To Michael, it marked the successful first step in a carefully laid plan. And to Clara, it was the moment she realized just how much further she was willing to go. The first weeks of marriage were a dream Isabella clung to with both hands. Michael woke her each morning with a kiss, his voice honey-sweet as he asked about her rest. They walked through the garden hand in hand, laughed over dinners, and entertained guests with perfect harmony. To the outside world, theirs was the picture of happiness. But slowly, the edges began to fray. It started with subtle suggestions. One evening, as Isabella poured them wine in the sitting room, Michael leaned back in his chair, his tone light, almost casual. "Bella, I've been thinking, why keep all our finances separate? We're one now. Why not merge some of your assets with mine? It'll be easier to manage as a family." Isabella hesitated, the wineglass trembling in her hand. She had always managed her business and inheritance independently. "I suppose that makes sense," she murmured. "It's just, I've always been careful with these things." Michael smiled, reaching for her hand. "And you should be. I only want to support you. Don't you trust me?" Her heart softened. Of course she trusted him. He was her husband, her chosen partner. Within a month, several accounts bore both their names. Contracts were quietly altered. Michael's patience was endless, his charm unwavering. He never pushed too hard, always framing each step as an act of unity. But beneath the surface, his design tightened like a noose. Clara's presence remained constant. She visited often, sometimes staying the night under the pretense of helping with Isabella's schedules. Isabella, delighted to have her sister close, never questioned the lingering glances between Clara and Michael. She dismissed the tightening in her chest as foolishness, as paranoia born from fatigue. But the unease grew. One night, Isabella lay awake, listening to Michael's steady breathing beside her. The moonlight streamed across his face, perfect and serene. Yet the warmth she once felt was gone. A chill had taken its place, whispering doubts into her restless mind. She turned, closing her eyes, willing herself to believe in the love she had sworn was true. In the quiet of the house, Michael smiled faintly in his sleep, dreaming not of Isabella, but of Clara. The night it unraveled was thick with rain. Thunder rattled the windows, lightning flashed against the curtains, and the storm howled like an omen. Isabella rose from her bed, restless, searching for the shawl she had left in the study. As she approached, voices halted her steps. The door was slightly ajar, light spilling through the crack. "You promised me," Clara's voice whispered, fierce with desperation. "I will," Michael answered. Sharp but controlled. "But not yet. We can't risk it. If Bella suspects too soon, everything collapses." Isabella froze, her breath caught in her throat. Clara's reply came choked, trembling. "I can't keep doing this, Michael. She trusts me. She tells me everything, and all the while we're lying. I can't stand it." Michael's tone hardened. "We're securing our future, Clara. Do you understand? Once I've gained full access, once everything is under my name, then we'll be free. Bella will have nothing left to hold us." The words struck Isabella like a blade. Her hands shook violently, pressing against her mouth to stifle the gasp that escaped her. She leaned against the wall, her world shattering with every syllable. Her husband, her sister, together in betrayal. Her heart broke, but her face remained in the shadows, unseen. She stumbled back silently, her body numb, her soul screaming. That night, Isabella wept into her pillow until her tears ran dry. By dawn, she was changed. The innocent bride had been buried beneath grief and fury. In her place rose a woman of resolve. She would not confront them yet. She would not give them the pleasure of her collapse. She would wait, she would gather proof, and when the time came, she would strike with precision. The storm outside raged on, but within Isabella, a new storm began to form. Days turned into weeks, and Isabella played her role flawlessly. She smiled at Michael, laughed with Clara, and spoke of new business ventures. Her mask was perfect, her act convincing. But beneath the veil, she moved with quiet purpose. She visited her lawyer, Mr. Adwale, under the guise of updating her will. In his office, she laid out her fears in hushed tones. He listened carefully, his keen eyes narrowing. "You're certain of this?" he asked, tapping a pen against the desk. "I heard it with my own ears," Isabella replied, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I need every asset traced. I need their actions recorded. If I confront them without proof, they'll twist everything. But if I have evidence..." Mr. Adwale nodded gravely. "Then you will not only protect yourself, but destroy their scheme." Over the next month, Isabella built her arsenal. Bank statements copied, contracts analyzed, secret meetings photographed. A small recorder hidden in the study captured whispered conversations between Michael and Clara. Each piece was a weapon, each file another stone in the fortress she constructed around herself. Michael remained oblivious. He grew bolder, pressing Isabella about merging properties, speaking of signing new powers of attorney. Clara, torn between guilt and passion, faltered at times, but Michael's persuasive tongue always pulled her back. To them, Isabella was still blind. But each smile she offered was sharpened steel. Each tender word was a step closer to their ruin. The trap closed on a night that began like any other. The dining hall shimmered with candlelight, the long table heavy with food and silverware. Family and close friends gathered, their chatter filling the air with warmth. Isabella presided at the head of the table, radiant, her composure flawless. Michael sat proudly at her side, his hand resting on hers. Clara was opposite, her laughter light but her eyes flickering with unease. Neither of them sensed the weight of the storm about to break. Midway through the meal, Isabella rose, her glass raised. The room quieted, all eyes upon her. "My dear family," she began, her voice calm and steady, "tonight is not simply a dinner. Tonight I must share a truth." Michael frowned slightly, masking it with a smile. Clara's fork slipped from her fingers, clattering against her plate. "For months I have been misled," Isabella continued, her gaze sweeping across the guests. "By the two people I trusted most, my husband, my sister." Gasps rippled through the room. Michael stood abruptly. "Bella, what are you saying? Don't." She lifted a folder from the side table and opened it with deliberate grace. "I am saying that while I poured my love into this marriage, Michael and Clara poured their deceit into my life. Here is the evidence." She spread the papers across the table. Photographs of secret meetings, transcripts of whispered promises, copies of altered contracts. The proof lay bare, undeniable. The guests erupted in shocked murmurs. Clara burst into tears, her voice frantic. "Bella, please, I never meant." Michael's face drained of color. "This is absurd. Fabrications." "Enough," Isabella's voice cut through like thunder. "Do not insult me further. You plotted to strip me of everything. You thought me blind, but I saw, I listened, and I prepared." The family's eyes turned cold upon Michael and Clara. The shame in the room was palpable, crushing. Isabella lowered the folder, her hands steady though her heart ached. "I may have lost my trust, my dream, my sister, but I have not lost myself." She sat, regal in her sorrow, as Michael and Clara crumbled under the weight of exposure. The veil of betrayal had been torn, and beneath it, Isabella found her strength. Michael lost the fortune he schemed to steal. Clara lost her sister forever. And Isabella, though scarred, rose from the ashes, a woman unbroken.